Can you believe that in the year 2025 we're getting a new piece of Skyrim merchandise? This is a brick build set made by the company Mega based on Alduin, the world leader from the Elder Scrolls series. This set comes with one figure, 619 pieces, and is recommended for ages 17 and up. We're going to start by taking a look at the figure that's included in this set, which is based off the Dragonborn, who is the character you play as in the Skyrim video game. And I really like this figure as a whole. There is a ton of detail to be seen here. The character is depicted wearing leather straps that wrap around the torso, and there is some pretty good detail on that piece, and as we turn him around to the side here, you can also see that he's wearing some gloves that also has some rather nice printed detail. My favorite part about this figure has to be the white skirt piece that the character wears. I think its overall aesthetic fits the theme very well, and it just has a really nice amount of detail. And as we start to make our way around to the back of the figure, you can see that there is a hole in the middle of his back, which is pretty standard for Mega figures, but we're going to talk about what that does in just a little bit. Continuing to look at the waist piece, you can also see that there is a leather belt that wraps around the character. And as we start to make our way back to the front of the figure, I do want to take a minute to talk about the helmet that the character wears. While I do feel like its overall shape is rather accurate, I would have liked to see the horns on the helmet be a little bit of a different color. The color that Mega decided to use is a little bit too close to the silver in my opinion. I would have liked to have seen the horns be a little bit of a lighter color or the helmet be darker just to further differentiate the two. And finally, as we make our way back to the front of the figure, you can see that there is some rather impressive detail on the boots of the figure as well. Removing the helmet of the figure does reveal a pretty standard looking face underneath. And he does come with a couple weapons as accessories, the first of which we're going to take a look at is this sword, which is very plain looking. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more detail beyond it, but thanks to the ball joints found throughout the character, we are able to get him in a pretty cool looking pose with it. The character also comes with a transparent blue and orange flame piece, and I assume that these are meant to represent these spells that the character can cast in the video game, and I personally am not really the biggest fan of how these look, but I suppose it is a rather nice inclusion, and does give you a couple of display options with posing this figure. Mega also includes a clip that can be attached to the middle of the hole found in the character's back, and its purpose is to hold the character's sword. I do feel like that this is a pretty respectable figure, and if you're a fan of the Skyrim video game series, I think it'll be a nice addition to your collection. With the figure out of the way, we're ready to talk about the build for this set, which is Alduin, the world leader, which I have mixed feelings about. I do feel like it is a rather cool and aesthetically pleasing build to look at, but it is very fragile and is going to fall apart very easily. We're going to start by taking a look at the head of Alduin, and one thing that I have continuously praised Mega for is they're not afraid to make exclusive molded pieces to really get the shape and design of their build. I think the head sculpt is really great and there's a ton of detail to be seen here. The head is made up of two pieces and there is a hinge in the jaw, so you are able to close the mouth of Alduin. The neck does have a couple of ball joints in it, which allows for a good variety of range of motion and articulation, which is really nice for posability and displayability of this set. And I will say that surprisingly, the neck of the dragon is one of the more sturdy parts of the build. I personally didn't have too many issues with moving the neck around. We're going to do a quick pan down on each side of Alduin's body, and I do like some of the building techniques that were used here and the overall shape of the build. But there were some parts of the build that I did find to be rather frustrating. The entire build is primarily the same color, and if you look closely, a lot of the pieces that were used are just mirrored versions of each other. This made it a little bit frustrating and confusing for me at some points during the build personally. I feel like a rather controversial part of this build is going to be the cloth piece that they used for the wings, which does have some rather impressive detail on them, but I do feel like there are going to be a couple of issues. If you look closely at some parts of the wing, you can see that the cloth is being stretched out quite a bit, which for me is a little bit concerning as over time it's either going to rip or lose its elasticity. The wings do come with a couple of ball joints that allows for some pretty good range of motion and articulation, but if you look towards the chest of Alduin, you are going to see that a piece is going to pop off, and this was a very common occurrence when filming this review. It took me multiple takes to show off the articulation in the wings because either parts of the wing would pop off or that chest piece that just fell off in the previous clip. So like I said at the start of this review, this is a very fragile build and you're going to have to be careful. Not only is this a very fragile build, but it's also a very large build. As you can see by taking a look at the back of the box, this set spans a total of 25.5 inches. So you're going to want to make sure you have plenty of room to display this set if you decide to purchase it. There is this pretty cool feature where you can actually collapse both of the wings found on each side of the dragon, which can help you save space if that's something you choose to do. And while I do understand what Mega was going for here, I personally find this to look a little bit strange. Next up, we're going to be taking a look at the articulation in the back legs, which does have a couple of ball joints, which allows for some pretty good posability. But again, keep in mind, I had to film this multiple times as there were pieces that kept popping off. And that is something that I cannot reiterate enough, as I spent more time putting this set back together than actually filming the review you're watching. If you take a look at where my thumb just was, you can see that another piece decided to pop off. There are a ton of ball joints in the tail, which again allows for some pretty good articulation and posability, and the build is rather sturdy. The problem is when you grab the tail and start to move it around, more than likely other pieces of the build are going to fall off. But I will say that when you have this set built, you are able to put Alduin into some pretty cool poses, and I do feel like that this will make a pretty cool looking display piece in any brick built collection. The back of the box does show off a couple of different poses you can also put Alduin in, but in my experience it was rather difficult to replicate any of these poses. Mega also includes a rather simplistic looking display stand for this set, which can be attached to this hole found in the middle of Alduin's belly. And it is a rather simple, straightforward process that works well. There is this really nice printed piece that says Skyrim on it, as well as a couple of studs located on the stand that you can place the Dragonborn figure onto. The Alduin the World Eater set made by Mega retails for $50. And I think that for the average person, I wouldn't recommend paying $50 for this set in particular, but if you are an absolutely diehard Skyrim fan, I do feel like this will make a rather nice display piece in your collection. Just keep in mind that it is a very fragile build, and even though it does have some rather impressive posability, it is more than likely going to fall apart. Thank you so much for watching my review, and be sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel for future brick build reviews in the future.